We are talking about the bombastic horror comedy movie NEKROTRONIC. The man behind this is Roache-Turner, of course, behind the much-loved zombie movie Wormwood. So Wormwood was actually a kind of a genre-mashing movie to a lot of ways. If you haven't seen it, it kind of smashed up elements from zombie movies along with kind of the post-apocalyptic kind of style of movies, similar to Mad Max. And this movie does something similar. So NEKROTRONIC is once again a genre-smashing movie, but it's very specific in what it's kind of smashing together. Rather than genres, I would argue this is actually smashing together two specific films, that being Ghostbusters 2016 meets The Matrix. So let me give you a brief plot synopsis here. It basically follows this kind of guy who is like a sewage worker, so he's kind of, you know, he's low down on the social standings and stuff, and him and his kind of dopey friend are out doing jobs, and everyone's kind of obsessed with this kind of like new game, which is kind of similar to Pokemon Go, where you hunt ghosts and stuff. I mean, this is a little bit like telling you does you know, too many video games and too much mobile phones rot your brain and turn you into a zombie kind of metaphor, but there you go. And as it turns out, this guy may have a connection to a mystical force, and this mystical force is kind of like the power that essentially the good guys, the necromancers, basically used to fight off these demons that are using the internet to try and enslave people through their kind of like mobile devices through playing this kind of game and such like this. And the demons are led by sort of genre favourite Monica Bellucci, of course from The Matrix herself, or at least one of the Matrix sequels. Yeah, and she's kind of leading the kind of army of demonic entities to try and stop the necromancers. So that's your kind of your basic plot synopsis. So let me explain my analogy first of all. So Ghostbusters 2016, I'm not talking about necessarily the female angle with that film, but I'm talking about the kind of the aesthetics, the kind of like the neon day glow of the kind of the aesthetics, and that's very similar to what we have here in regards to the kind of the glowing ghosts and demons that we kind of see, to the kind of like the technology, what they're using and stuff like that. And these guys are essentially Ghostbusters, but for demons, kind of in the way they even use little trap things similar to the kind of like the ghost traps from the Ghostbusters franchise. And then we have this kind of the Matrix element, which is basically where the kind of the demons are trying to kind of use like an online, and they kind of plug themselves in to go on the web and things like this to try and infiltrate and kind of do kind of damage within there. And that's kind of what we have here as well. We have the, you know, with these guys plugging themselves in essentially to the Matrix, so to speak, and kind of doing battle online in a way. So, but we do have, there are physical kind of battles in the real world. I don't think it's all kind of done online and stuff. Yeah, so kind of it's, let's talk about what works first of all. Absolutely a bombastic kind of monster-filled light show, this one. It really is very kind of like OTT. And again, I'll put this back to the Ghostbusters 2016 sort of style, visual style, but it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed our male character, our male kind of leads. We've got this kind of our everyman who's kind of like the put upon guy who doesn't really know what he's doing. He's a bit of a doofus and has to kind of learn quickly that to try and, you know, use the power of the necromancer. And then we have his even dopier friend who ends up becoming a kind of a supernatural entity himself, and is even more silly and stupid than our main character. I thought Monica Bellucci is absolutely killing it, and that's the kind of like this bad kind of demon queen. She's loads of fun, and I actually quite enjoyed the kind of the neon ghosts from the Ghostbusters 2016, and I kind of still kind of like them here. And there's some fantastic kind of like you know, sort of over the top kind of practical effects here. It really does play so much like that Ghostbusters film, but with kind of a mature, more gory and sort of, you know, swearing filled version of that film. So maybe an R-rated version of Ghostbusters, so to speak, but still having that campy kind of quality, that kind of like tongue-in-cheek, not taking itself too seriously vibe that movie had. Yeah, and the story is very, very kind of like fast-paced. There's lots going on. The set designs and kind of like the props here give the impression that it's actually a fairly sizable budget movie. I'm not quite sure the budget of this one, but you know, there's some decent kind of like production value here. So you feel like you're watching, you know, something where there's kind of been some investment in, and you know, the inventive direction from Kia Roache-Turner, I think is very evident, and we saw that in kind of you know, in Wormwood. What doesn't work for me, I think this movie is a little bit too similar to the, kind of the Ghostbusters franchise to a lot of degree. It really kind of follows very similar beats to that one. Maybe I can appreciate obviously that there is some you know, some kind of like influences, but it seems to be almost becoming a little bit too close for comfort, in the fact that it almost feels like a remake to a certain degree. One thing that bothered me with this film, and this may be a personal thing, but the kind of there are a couple of female protagonists, and it does something which I see very typically in a lot of films, and this is where our male characters are kind of like, you know, dumb schlubby guys, but the female characters are like just total badass, kick-ass women who take no shit. And it's just, I feel sometimes, it's particularly in genre movies, and there are exceptions, but for the most part, a lot of female characters are written to be these kind of like, these take no crap, can kind of like, you know, doesn't take any crap off the boys type sort of characters, and can do it better, and are always kind of the serious one, kind of like shutting down the fun maybe that the guys are having, and that is so these characters. I mean, there's these two sisters, I mean, and their character traits are virtually identical. So why bother having two characters that have the same kind of personality to me? And yeah, I mean, one's obviously for a love interest, but yeah, I mean, I just think it's a cliche writing that I've seen in a lot of female characters, especially in, like I said, action, sci-fi, that sort of thing. Like I said, there are exceptions. Obviously, we have kind of like your flawed characters, like, you know, your Ellen Ripley's and your Sarah Connors. But this ain't it. This is just kind of, I guess, Mary Sue to a certain degree. I've got to say, I think as well, the world building it falls on a little bit of the weaker side here. We got a huge exposition dump in the kind of the beginning of the movie, and the kind of the magical powers that the kind of the good guys have seem a little bit ill-defined to me. They just seem to do whatever the kind of the plot wants them to do, and it's hinted at where they come from, but that may be me reading into it. But it's just kind of like it's there because we need something to be able to kind of fight the demons, so to speak. So overall, this movie is a lot of fun. It really is an enjoyable kind of romp of a film. But I mean, one other thing as well, actually, there is, for all the kind of the good effects, there's a hell of a lot of CGI blood in this movie, a hell of a lot, and it's distracting at times. There are a couple of times where some of the CGI kind of monsters look a little weak, but for a lot of the time, I think they look okay. But the CGI blood does not look okay. That looks a lot like, well, CGI blood. But yeah, it's a fun movie. I don't think it's as strong as Wormwood. It feels like it's bigger in scale than Wormwood. And so it's obviously a natural progression. And obviously, it has a similar feel, I guess, but it's so similar to Ghostbusters 2016. It really is, in regards to the kind of the tone of that film and the kind of the visual style, rather than the kind of, like I said, the female-centric stuff. But yeah, it's a fun movie. I'll give this one a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.